Greetings nerdy list aficionados and welcome back to Top 10 Nerd, the channel where we go over a whole host of nerdy topics, usually from comics, and compile some interesting lists for all of you. I know the interest level varies for some. Today we have a fun one. It's useless villains who are now powerful. Now I'm going to be taking this from a different angle slightly and widen powerful from just physical strength, but to being a credible threat, or someone who is now taken seriously, be it because of a cool plot or an adaptation or just evolution over time. These villains are now no longer laughed at most of the time. I'm Sasha and let's give these villains their due. Let's get started. Number 10. Hugo Strange. This character first debuted in Detective Comics number 36 back in 1940. He's from the Golden Age and is one of Batman's first recurring villains, and the first to discover his secret identity, but not in a cool way, at least not at first. In the Golden Age it was more of an, oh, Bruce Wayne walked by and there was a bat shadow, haha, he's Batman. Hugo Strange started off as a scientist who stole a concentrated light machine to take on Batman. He didn't even become associated with being a doctor medical type until the 70s. Despite his historical significance, he wasn't really much of a threat and his plots were, well, pretty silly, though that could be par for the course. The Doctor Strange people have come to know and appreciate wasn't introduced till after Crisis, so post-Crisis on Infinite Earths in 1985. Here he is a psychiatrist trying to capture Batman, but he becomes obsessed. His whole origin was tweaked, it made him a much more compelling character, and also eventually increased his intelligence and strategizing levels. He moved up from being a one-time threat to someone who worked in the shadows and can mobilize other threats against Batman. Cold, clinical, and insane, Strange began to make the leap into adaptation, and has now become a recognized character, from appearing in video games, to Gotham, to even Batman the Animated Series. Hugo Strange has secured his place amongst Batman's impressive rogues gallery. Number 9. Kite Man. Kite Man comes to us from the Silver Age, debuting in Batman number 133 from 1960. He was a man who decided the best way to commit crimes was with kite-themed weapons, for what is more menacing than a kite? This character quickly became a joke and was treated as such, an inconvenience rather than a credible threat, and really his whole getup was kind of unwieldy. But wait for it, wait longer than Crisis, we need to go all the way to DC Rebirth for this upgrade, where all of a sudden Kite Man got a makeover and a tragic backstory. He becomes a linchpin in the backstory of other criminals, for example working to design the Joker mobile, and his villainous career was a result of failed dreams. He ends up getting dragged into events he never anticipated. His affinity for kites is now an homage to his son. It's all sad, it's daring you to laugh at it. Now it's kinda like, oh yeah, you thought it was funny? Well, look at this. He becomes Kite Man because his son was killed and his son loved kites. This was during the War of Jokes and Riddles, and he takes on the mantle of Kite Man as the ultimate joke before joining the Joker's side and viewpoint. It's an update, that's for sure. Number 8. Dr. Light. Dr. Light has had a rocky journey as a villain. We're talking about Arthur Light here, not Jacob Finlay. Arthur first debuted in Justice League of America number 12 back in 1962, and at first was a villain who fought against the Justice League and the Green Lantern, etc., but then became kind of a joke when he was paired up against the Teen Titans, the first iteration, not the cool 80s New Teen Titans iteration. No, the popular but aggressively hip 60s version. What's the pitch, Daddy-o? Yeah, it was kind of hard to have cred when you're fighting teens. However, then something would occur that would ruin Light's character for years. Identity crisis. This 2004 storyline would turn Dr. Light into a rapist. Why? Just cuz. He has no motivation. It's literally, oh, I'm on the JLA watchtower and Sue Dibney is here too, so I'm evil and I guess why not? So after this he was mind wiped by Zatanna, and this is said to be the reason for his more kiddish switch, and hence why he became a less credible villain. But then he becomes aware of what happened, and well, he becomes a menace once more. But for a while writers would just make him rapey. He talked about it all the time. The New 52 would change all this, making him a more enhanced metahuman who was a threat from the start. I mean, one could argue since he's on Teen Titans Go so much, he's still jokey, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. All villains have a function, and if you end up the villain of an A team, even if they're a bunch of teens, hey, that's not so bad. At least not in my opinion anyway. Number 7. Mr. Mind. Mr. Mind first appeared in Captain Marvel Adventures number 26 back in 1943. He is a 2-inch telepathic worm who is an evil mastermind. The concept is inherently silly, but one of those ones that does a 180 and becomes awesome. An evil worm. It's too good. He formed the first supervillain comic team, the Monster Society of Evil. Don't let your dreams be dreams. Still, Mr. Mind would vanish for quite a while after the folding of Fawcett Comics. A lot of Billy Batson, at the time Captain Marvel, his characters were considered quite outlandish and were a bit too kiddish. That was some of the mindset. But Mr. Mind would return with a vengeance in the 70s. Now, Mr. Mind was never useless, but he was kind of niche and less well known. The concept of him has become cooler over time, and the thing is, he keeps being shelved. People aren't sure what to do with him. But thanks to Shazam, people are aware of this little critter again, and just how powerful he can be. This is Mr. Mind's time to shine, or at least I hope it is. Please give me Mr. Mind as the lead villain in a movie. I want the plushie. Think of how cute that would be. Number 6. Kraven the Hunter. Scandalous, some of you cry. But Kraven was not always considered the hardcore cool character he is today. In fact, a lot of that cred can be attributed to Kraven's last hunt, where he quite succinctly takes down Spider-Man just to prove he can. Kraven first appeared in The Amazing Spider-Man number 15 back in 1964. He's also the Chameleon's half-brother. Fun fact. Kraven is Sergei Kravinoff, and well, here's the thing, certain Spidey writers at the time didn't like him. They thought he was silly. It was only during the Last Hunt storyline when DeMatteis learned that the character was Russian and made him think that he should have a tragic personality to match. Kraven's Last Hunt was initially conceived with another character in mind, and then it became a Kraven story afterwards. This began Kraven's ascent to beloved villain, though of course some have been there all along, villain hipsters. Kraven is now sought after to be adapted into live action. Whenever people hear there's gonna be a new villain, there's always a group who's like, Kraven? What? Where? Number 5. Captain Cold. A lot of this is owed to the CW, but not all of it. Captain Cold has long been an antagonist of The Flash, both Barry Allen and Wally West. He first debuted in Showcase number 8 back in 1957. Leonard Snart fell prey to a rep ascribed to The Flash's villains, oftentimes by people who didn't read The Flash, namely that his villains were silly. And how could Cold be the opposite of fast? Shouldn't his true antagonist be the Turtle Man? Thank goodness it wasn't. Over time, Captain Cold would come to be the de facto leader of the Flash's Rogues Gallery, and a quasi-frenemy of the Flash, and one of the most well-known rogues. Then the Flash CW show happened, and now people have a crush on Captain Cold, a move that cements you in the public consciousness. Just look at Loki. Now he's got his own solo series again and is wearing terrible punny shirts that cause me physical pain. Captain Cold has been credible for a while now, but I still wanted to talk about him. Also because I wanted to tell you about this hilarious classic tale where Barry Allen thought he was Captain Cold. It's great. Am I the Flash or Captain Cold? Number 4. Sinestro. This one may be hard for some to believe since Sinestro is so credible now and his history is iconic, but there was a time when Sinestro was just kinda meh as a villain, and the Sinestro Corps was pretty much just Sinestro with a yellow ring that only mattered because it was yellow and Lanterns couldn't deal with yellow at the time because reasons. Sinestro suffered a few resets along with Hal Jordan, the Silver Age Green Lantern, because throughout the period leading up to Hal's death, and Sinestro's death actually, the common complaint about Hal and the Green Lantern book in general was that it was boring with a capital B. I disagree, but I read it now. I can't speak to what it was like reading it at the time. The time when you read things adds context to how it is received and thusly how much you enjoy it. It's always important to examine these things. Or, you know, don't. Sinestro first debuted in Green Lantern Volume 2 number 7 back in 1961 and was an ally to Hal at first before his true nature was revealed. However, it would be after his death, actually at the hands of Hal, and his resurrection that he would rise more powerful than ever before, with a really lame explanation as to how he was fine, but we're just gonna let that go. Sinestro would become the leader of the Yellow Lantern Corps, or the Fear Corps, his rigid, well-disciplined personality making him a perfect threat to the galaxy and counterpoint to Hal Jordan. Sinestro is up there with the core villains now. It was hard fought. I've always liked Sinestro. I don't think I'm boring. I'm fun. Number 3. The Penguin. The Penguin first debuted in Detective Comics number 58 back in 1941. Now the Penguin started off as just your average villain, distinguished largely by his bird-like appearance and iconic umbrella. At first an affectation brought on by an overprotective mother. He was a thief who would team up with other rogues often, and he would largely vanish for a time post-crisis, but then after a tale helmed by Alan Grant, his cred would begin to rise. The aspects of his personality that made him want to be a gentleman criminal would begin to come to the fore. His desire for sophistication, which so contrasted with his appearance, made him an intriguing combination. And he was one of the villains to get the spotlight on the seminal Batman the Animated Series, which would launch the DCAU, that being the DC Animated Universe. Penguin would eventually become the owner of the Ice Club, and cement himself as a villain who had ties to organized crime and was above petty street-level fare. The thing is, he can do both, and he has friends in both worlds. The Penguin is a serious villain. He's always been around, but he's definitely increased his credibility over the years. Number 2. Catman. Catman. He first debuted in Detective Comics number 311 back in 1963. He was Thomas Reese Blake, a jungle trapper who turned to crime because he was bored and had run out of money because he wasted it. He actually modeled his costume off of Catwoman, and she was annoyed that he was stepping on her turf as a cat-themed villain. Cause yes, he used to go for cat-themed items as well. He would later adopt an African-styled costume that would always suffer from the fact that he looked like a lame Batman ripoff. But then Gail Simone created the team The Secret Six, and on it was a revamped version of Catman. You know, one of those attempts to make a character hardcore and awesome, only it actually worked, largely because it acknowledged his lame past and made fun of it. Now Blake was a grizzled cat lover, yes, but no longer a hunter of them. He was a loner and a reluctant leader. He was also bisexual, which you find out because Gail Simone was tweeting about it, and about how she was gonna make it canon next time she wrote the book. Everybody on Twitter has a chance to turn to J.K. Rowling. Still, I mean, it was pretty obvious that he had a thing for Deadshot. What Secret Six really did for Catman was it made him interesting and detailed him, and I'm a sucker for him in The Huntress. Hero villain things? Sign me up. He's now been permanently upgraded to cool, or so it seems, and he even kept that costume for a bit. Now that's a feat. And number 1, the Riddler. Now some of you may be going, hold up, come on. But hear me out. The Riddler first debuted in Detective Comics number 140 back in 1948. His gimmick was that he loved riddles, puzzles, and all that kind of fare, and it would eventually become an obsession that he had to leave riddles even if they would lead to him being caught. While the Riddler would be a threat that Batman would have to deal with, many times at the start it didn't feel too dire, it was more of a game, and sometimes the riddles, well, they were lame. But over time the Riddler would get a cunning boost and go through phases of being menacing, knowing Batman's secret identity, or planning elaborate chess-like crimes where the riddles could be multi-nuanced. He would find legitimacy in games as a mastermind, and an intriguing portrayal on Gotham, arguably one of its highlights. His complexity would be increased, and his desire to be taken seriously as a villain would become a plot point. There's been a big push for him of late at the time of this recording, like in the changed ending of the animated Hush film. Personally, I'm a fan of the reformed Riddler, which is a while back in the past nowadays. Connor wants me to talk about Jim Carrey Riddler, but we're talking about increased menace and cred, not talking about taking him back to camp. Although there are some moments there, hints of darkness, that made me wish that it had been played that way the entire film. The Riddler's definitely up there with being able to be a threat to Batman on multiple fronts now, and is finally a villain other villains take seriously as well. So those were 10 useless villains who are now powerful. Who do you think should have been on the list? Share your thoughts down below. Also, thanks to those who corrected an error I had on the Boys Scary Stories. It's always appreciated. Well, wreck on that. It's appreciated when it's nice and informative. When it's rude, well then it's unappreciated and the name goes on a list. I'm Sasha, thanks so much for watching Top 10 Nerd. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe for more nerdy videos. Hit that bell notification so that you never miss a vid, and we'll see you again soon. Bye bye!